Hello. Welcome back to Two Cats Writing. I'm Catrina.
And I'm MJ.
And we're glad to have you back. Today we're discussing editing. We're comparing our experiences, one as a traditionally published author, because MJ's gotten started on the editing for their second book. And I am working on a new process for myself for the current series I'm working on. So it'll be fun to share and see where we're at. Right before we got on the podcast, you had a phone call with your editor, yes?
I did. I had, so just a few days ago, like less than a week ago, I got my edit letter for book 2, which is the sequel to I Was a Teenage Death God. So the second part of the duology. And I got the edit letter and we set up a call for today to talk about it. And then, so that was what was happening today. I did a lot of preparation for that. I went through, this is my process, and not every writer would necessarily do this, but like for me, the way to prepare for that was I took all the notes in the edit letter, which were so brilliant. Oh my goodness. Like being able to like read something like this and have like every paragraph make me go, oh yes, oh that's so amazing. Like that's how it felt to me when I was reading through the edit letter, and that's a great feeling to have. It got me really inspired. So what I did, since we're my editor at this particular publisher does edits in 3 rounds. We'll do first a big picture, like developmental editing on a big picture, like structural scale. And then we'll do, the next one will be like a scene by scene focus. And then after that, line edits. So right now we're on the big picture structure thing. So what I did was I basically wrote out, typed up a quick thing. I've been calling it the map, the original map. And I've been calling it a map so that it's really an outline, you guys, but like I can't write outlines and I get really messed up at the thought of writing outlines. So I called it a map to trick myself, to trick my brain into being able to actually do it. That was basically an outline, but a very rudimentary one. You know, like I was writing down like chapter by chapter, like a list of things that happened in that chapter, but in a very perfunctory manner. And then so I kept that, and then I made a copy of that and went through and like took the letter and went through and revised the map. So that, because what I needed, since we're talking structurally, I needed to know where I was going to put in these new ideas, like where, if I was shifting around where things happened, like how that was working in to create either like completely changing chapters or like moving them around, adding new ones, deleting ones that were there now. I needed to have that structure in my head, that big picture. So it was easiest for me to do that. Kind of on paper and like taking all the concepts from the letter and figuring out where they would go. So I did that. The things that were new chapters or that had a lot of changes, the list of things that happened in the chapter were less perfunctory. You know, they were more descriptive because they might have been like completely new stuff happening. And then I also took the edit letter itself and wrote responses to questions, answer or like paragraphs like describing how I addressed certain things, you know, like notes, like extra notes on how I addressed things that were in the letter, so that we could have that, so that like all those answers and all those things would be like easy to access for both of us while we were having the meeting. I wanted to like bring all my ideas to the table, so it would be and have it be really organized and easy to go through. Hi, Ambercat. Organized and easy to go through, so that we could spend our time on the meat of the discussion rather than like
Mhm.
trying to work out like sort of the logistics of this happens where and what.
Mhm.
And I also, because I have ADHD, I know that if I have things written down in advance like that, it keeps me from spending so much time to like going off in tangents or like forgetting the important stuff. Ember is standing in front of my camera right now, so there might be some weirdness happening with my model, or like not movingness happening with my model.
We
Because
never
she's
go off on
here to
tangents.
say hi.
Hi, Amber
So,
Cat.
so I brought all that to the meeting. And we had an incredible conversation. My editor is so wonderfully smart and creative, like just absolutely brilliant, and really understands my work. I think that's something that definitely, and you might have some things to counter this with, or like, you know, like from your experience, I don't know, like being a traditionally published author where the editor I'm working with is the editor who acquired the book. So it's someone who loved or like book one, loved that book enough to want to work on it, you know, for a year with me, and was, you know, willing to jump through the hoops of getting it acquired by the publisher. Like you have like an editor really has to believe in the book to do all that work and to, you know, convince the publisher that this can make us money. And so the editor is already, if you're lucky, I mean, I've heard some horror stories too of people whose books were acquired and they didn't really feel that much of a connection with their editor when they started to work and really had problems. But most of the time, this is already going to be someone who's in love with your book and really gets it. Otherwise, they wouldn't be acquiring it. That's great. And it's a great way to go into a conversation like this where you know that they're on board with what you're doing. There's a level of trust there because there's an investment on both sides into making this a really great book. And that's not much different than when you're doing edits with your agent. I will talk about, if you want me to, at some point here, what was different with working with my agent on a book and working with my editor on this book. But in both cases, it's someone who's like fallen in love with your work, and that's why you're working with them. So I don't know how that might differ from when you're hiring the editor, and the editor isn't someone who necessarily has that inherent investment in the book, like other than like doing a job for you. Oh my God. I'm sorry. My model is like going absolutely crazy. You're not moving at all because Ember, she's just really going to town here on my desk. So apologies everyone, but,
happy baby. We know she makes mandatory appearance in the podcast. It's all good.
We're recording a little later in the day than we sometimes do. So I think she's already like, hey, have you started thinking about dinner yet? Could it be dinner time? No, not yet. Because we have to talk about books. Ember Cat.
Right. This is important, silly kitties. My cats start doing that about an hour before dinner time. So I will, if everything goes well, I might be preoccupied. And as far as they're concerned, the only thing I should be occupied with is getting up and feeding them. It's great.
Yeah. Anyway. I think that's what's going on here. Anyway, yeah. If you want to talk a little bit about what it's like working with an editor as an indie author where it's not that same situation.
Well, actually, it should still be that same kind of situation. You don't want to hire an editor that doesn't get excited about what they're working with, because they are going to be differently vested for exactly what you're describing. If they are just looking at this as a paycheck, I mean, it works, don't get me wrong, but it works if you're going to work with an editor like that. It works better for your line edits and grammar and did you put your commas right and that kind of thing. You don't really want that in a developmental editor, and you don't want that in somebody who's got a step-by-step breakdown each section to help you better understand how to improve your actual craft. If it's just somebody who's going to make sure that you dotted your I's, crossed your T's, and put your periods where they belonged, or used an ellipsis when it was supposed to be an ellipsis instead of whatever. Structure basics. Someone who's good at it doesn't necessarily need to be an expert at your story, doesn't need to be an expert at what they're doing even, except for that specific aspect of the field. But to work with your developmental editor, my best suggestions for most, and this is what I have learned in my best experience, is give somebody 5 pages or a chapter of your book. Come up with a reasonable fee, because they are working for you. Even if all you give them is the first 5 pages, they're doing work, so you have to pay them.
Oh yeah, for sure.
Come up with something and let them edit this book and get back to you in this little section. And if their feedback makes sense to you, then you go ahead and you can work with them. But if you find that you guys can't click on the information, or you find that the information that you are clicking on doesn't actually help your book, then you're not working with the right person. If they've gotten back from the first few pages or the first chapter and they are not as excited about the story and they aren't asking you to just send them the rest, you are not dealing with somebody you probably want to be working with. You're dealing with somebody who is looking for a paycheck, and that's not what you want when you're trying to smooth out plot holes or things you didn't realize you were inconsistent with, or all the other fun chaos that we unintentionally create. So you do want an editor is what I'm saying. So interview your editors, test them once you've talked to them for a little bit, then test them. These are important steps to hiring an editor who's going to do your full book or your full series. And if you do hire them for book 1 of a series, my best suggestion is to hire them for the whole series. Don't go editor hopping halfway through a series, because then you're going to deal with other not so much fun issues, because that'll happen. And there's no need to do that. So that's how, as far as that goes. So you're still dealing with, in the end, at least in my case, you're still dealing with someone who gets excited about your writing, who's getting excited about seeing your book come out. You're getting someone who's thrilled with giving you honest to goodness information on the actual manuscript, on the actual series, that can work with you, that can actually work in a banner that you're looking for, will work on your timeline, deadline, and options, will be straightforward with you, because you're going to find especially when you're new to writing, they always have stuff that makes you, I used to have to tell myself not to editor. That was my mantra with the first book. Was I had to actually tell myself not to editor. The editor wanted the best for me. So
the editor does want the best.
There were scenes where my editor was like, "No, you have to do this," and I was like, "But I don't know what to do there." No, I don't care. You keep publish it like this. And I will tell you, I am so grateful to him for that.
Listen to your editors, folks. Listen to your editors.
They really aren't there. They aren't against you, no matter what it might feel like. You didn't ask them to work with you, or they didn't ask to work with you, depending on which side of the issue you are on, because they don't want the best for you. Take the feedback. It is feedback, and you need somebody who's going to tell you that, even if you are going through your own moment of don't the editor. You need them to still be able to tell you need to do that. It can be quite. I've had people walk into the room early on when I was first editing, and they asked me what I was doing, and I would apparently give them the an I'm editing look, and they would walk right back out. So for some of us, editing can be quite an emotional thing until you get used to this is part of the process.
Well, and yeah.
But I was just going to say, so yeah, you still want to hire an editor who's as enthusiastic about your story as you are, especially early on, because your developmental editor is the one helping you with your craft. They're not just telling you periods and commas. They're helping you say, this plot hole could not have been worked out the way it is. You probably didn't even realize it was a plot hole. Or you said this in chapter 1 and we're in chapter 50 and you just totally turned that upside down. You need somebody who will do that and who is not afraid to tell you that. So they have to be excited about your work, or they're not going to do that because they're not going to want it to be that polished. They won't care. You don't want that.
No, they need to, especially for developmental edits. I recommend. Now, I've been lucky in that like I said, I think not only does my editor at Page Street like really understand my work, but I also think they're just so brilliant, and like we're really on the same wavelength with like the kind of story that we want it to be. And I've had that same luck with my agent, where like ideally you're working with someone who like gets you and gets your work so much that when they send you like a long letter that's saying, here are all the problems with the book. Here's how like it really needs to be like, we need to see this. What if instead of this happens in chapter 3? What if this, like all this information from here can be up in this other place, like, earlier? How can we build up like more of a through line for this and that? And you want to read that letter and feel excited to get to work, excited and motivated and like just inspired by the brilliance on the page in front of you, the amazing ideas, the like clear understanding of where you were trying to go and where you might have faltered, where you might have failed to do what you were trying to do. And like when you're in your own head, like there were multiple things when I was reading this edit letter where my editor was confused by things that I was sure were explicitly on the page. But like if someone reading that deeply is not, it like doesn't see it there, it's not there, my friends. It is not there. It is not clear. You did not write it. You understood that it was there because it was in your head, but it wasn't making its way to the page in an understandable way. So there are like so many things, but you want to, ideally you're working with an editor or an agent who's an editorial agent and is revising a book with you to put on sub, where you get into that letter and you're reading it and you're like, oh yes, you're so right. Oh my God, same, and that's been my experience with my editor at Page Street, and it's been my experience with my agent too. And my agent is a very editorial agent, and we've worked on a number of books together so far. I was telling my editor today that the thing that was especially terrifying about sending this draft, so I was a Teenage Death God. When it was out on sub, I'd already been through like extensive revisions with my agent. And well, two agents really. but my current agent was like, had done the most work on it with me. And so it was very, very ready to go when it was going out to editors. And, the other book that I recently sent to my agent, and we've worked on that as well. But even then, even with my agent there, I didn't send a draft of that book to my agent until I felt really ready with it. It it wasn't a first draft. It was a draft
Right.
that I had written, I'd revised, I'd like, you know, other people had read it and given me feedback. Like I had it was to a place where I felt comfortable with it when I sent it. This was my first time working on contract, like under contract on a deadline, like a short deadline, to write a whole book from scratch. And I got that draft in on time, but it was like 2 a.m. and I was down to the wire. And it was the kind of situation where there were things that I discovered towards the end of the book that didn't work, or like where I felt like I'd written myself in a corner, or where I'd gotten a great idea and I could put it in there, but there wasn't time to go back and try to figure out how to integrate it better into the rest of the story. Like I just ran out of time. So I sent this first draft that like I had to send a draft that I didn't feel was ready. You know, like I had to send a draft that was very, very first draft, like completely the first draft that normally I would never have, or at least in the past, that would not have been the draft I sent to somebody who I wanted to be impressed with my work. So it was scary to do. It was scary to send a book where I was like, you know, in my heart, I was like, well, I had this great idea for this part of the book. And yeah, it was part of the approved outline. And when I imagined it, because the way my brain works, I'm a very good, like, big picture thinker. I'm not great with details. So I'm great at seeing that like big picture, and I imagined it in my head in this like sort of epic way. When I got down to actually the nuts and bolts of writing it, I was like, wow, this doesn't work at all. This is terrible. This is like, this whole concept kind of doesn't work. I don't really have time to change the concept. So I tried to I came up with some new things to try to make it work better, but it kind of sucked. It kind of sucked. And so when the edit letter got to that point and the editor was like, I was a little disappointed in the way that this, and I'm like, same. Oh my God. But what's great about that, and I think I said like these exact words to the editor, was like, okay, so I wrote myself into a corner and I couldn't figure out how to get out of it. I couldn't find the way out. And then my editor came along and was like, here's the doorway out. It's a beautiful door made of gold. Here, I will open it for you. Look at the shining light through this door, you know? Like, here is your way out of that corner. You can, and that's what you want, my friends. That's so good. But you're very vulnerable when you're sending something that is very first drafty like that to someone official, not your BFF, you know, not like your like critique partner who has seen you at your best and worst, you know, or you've been reading chapter to chapter as you write. Not even like your beta readers who are just like, you know, the people that you met in fandom like 10 years ago. And, you know, it's like not even... No. But like this publishing professional who you respect so much and who you want to think, you know, you want them to think that you're great. You want them to be like, you're a genius, MJ. Not like, wow, this is a train wreck, MJ. So yeah, that's a very vulnerable place to be in. I would say that my editor was amazing at writing a letter that didn't make me feel like they were reading a train wreck, even though in my heart I knew it was one. And we both got really excited in the conversation today because it turns out we both really like this part of the process and like working this way. So it was great. But yeah, that was the scary thing. Writing under contract like that was a new thing for me, and going into edits that way was a new thing for me, and it was like freaking terrifying. Cannot lie.
I can fully understand that. I know when I first started writing, I didn't want to share it with anybody, and then I figured I had to share it if I was going to get any better. So I finally started putting it actually on a blog. And that, like I had talked about in one of our previous episodes, is what led me to people finding it and then people finding me. And then the story actually getting finished. It was beautiful. But it's a process, and you have to be vulnerable in order to get to an editor. And then you also have to come to the understanding that your editor is the next step in making it polished, and learning from the advice they give you and getting that new perspective, like that section where you weren't sure where to go and fix it, and they give you this golden door. It's a beautiful thing, because the next time you write another duology and something doesn't feel right, you'll remember that conversation, and something will tick in your mind that maybe there's a different way. Something, it'll be a new perspective. It's like training your brain to think of it differently. And it's a beautiful thing as an author. At least I have found it to be a beautiful thing. I realize we're all different. And I have stopped trying to kill the editor, so I've come a long way.
Well, and finding that editor that you really trust too, especially with developmental edits, like with copy edits, where they're finding like that you picked up a hat in chapter 1 and you never took it off, or you didn't pick one up and you suddenly have one, like someone like finding all your little continuity errors and finding all those things, your copy editor or your proofreader. So like those are very, as you were saying before, those are jobs that are, those aren't so much, not that the copy editor sometimes can have creative ideas too, but like they're not, they're mostly,
structure and repetition,
rules.
And
they're like right. They're like nuts and bolts of, consistency and accuracy. And in the case of the proofreader and stuff, like adherence to grammar and stuff, and like those jobs aren't as much involved in the creative process, and you don't need the same things. But like with your developmental editor, especially if you're working a scenario like where we'll do 3 rounds of edits, including line edits that are going to be part of the developmental edit like window, kind of. Like that person is a creative partner in some ways. Maybe, I don't know how much this is true for indie in the same way as traditional publishing, whereas in traditional publishing, the editor's stake is different in that, or is enhanced by the fact that that's their work, that they are like that is like as an acquiring editor, like they're building a body of work at the publisher as well in their imprint. They're building a body of work. They have they're responsible for the creative content really as much as the author is, and those tend to be like a very collaborative process because of that, because they are they're working from a place where they're helping you craft something that is part of the voice of the imprint, part of the voice of the vibe of the imprint. Like they're building a catalog in as much, they're building a body of work almost as much as you are. It's just that their body of work spans over a lot of different authors. But like every editor is going to have a vibe. Like when you look back at the books that my editor acquired, there's a vibe, there's a commonality there. There's like, and that becomes part of the what people expect from that imprint and that publisher and so on. So it's like the stakes are pretty high for the editor as well. And so they're maybe more of a full creative partner in some ways. where the indie author is maybe because you are the publisher, it's more of a solo venture.
In
Or at
some
least that's
way,
what I'm guessing.
it really depends on what kind of a partnership you've gotten. For example, my Xerox series, I have a single editor that I work with now. This is somebody who's been with me from the start. He really knows the body of work. He knows how to work with me. I didn't him in the first 3 or 4 rounds of, really, you have these drastic overhauls, and I appreciate him so much. And
So
he
does
put up
he
with
feel like a sense of ownership there, do you think, a little bit? Or no?
Yes, absolutely.
Yes.
I have gotten the impression that he does, because he's done a lot to help me come so far, especially with that series. And I will never have enough words of gratitude for the fact that he put his foot down where I needed it to be put, like someone to put their foot down and say, no, really, you need to do this, whether you really want to or not. And it's such a silly thing, but especially when you're brand new and you're not really even sure how to handle this stuff.
Yeah.
You need somebody with experience, with an understanding of the story and a willingness to understand the story. And then someone who's going to stick with you, which is why I was saying, don't change it in the series. There will never be another Xerox book that is not edited by this editor. Unless they permanently retire in the worst possible way, which I have explained to them they are not allowed to do multiple times. And obviously, I am the authority of all things, so naturally that's going to happen.
I mean, obviously. I would say also,
seriously,
trad pub hopefuls. If you don't have an agent yet, you're looking to get one. The agent's job and the editor's job are different in a lot of ways, some of which I've already discussed. And also the agent's job, part of the agent's job when they're working with you to revise a manuscript, to go put out, to go send out on submission, is part of their job too, is to understand the market, to understand what they think they can sell right now and to who.
Identify tropes.
And identify what are people buying? What are people buying? And if you're trying to sell, you might make the decision to sell something that isn't what people are buying. Who do they think are the editors who will vibe with that and might be willing to go to bat for it? So it's their job to understand the market, to know the editors that they're going to be submitting to think about that, and that's why you want to listen to your agent when when you're working on revisions with them. Their stake is high too. They're selling it. They don't get paid unless this book gets sold. Right. They don't make money until the book is published, just like you. Or they get in advance, that part of the percentage of the advance. So it's like, the stakes are high, and they're slightly different for the agent than they are for the editor at the publisher, but in both cases they have a stake that is just as great as yours in some ways, maybe not as much emotionally, though. I gotta say,
to listen to, for sure.
Yeah. They're trying to help you make something that's going to be the best it can possibly be, that's going to sell, that's going to make you both money, that's going to advance your careers, that's going to make, that's going to go out in the world and do something that's important to both of you. I think talking with my editor today, I could feel their passion for the type of story. I can feel that it's important to them, what kind of work it is and what it has to say in the world. And that's just a great feeling. And being able to have that trust, it makes me feel I understand the value in maintaining a relationship with an editor if that ends up being a thing that's possible for you as a traditionally published author. If like I went
Mm-hmm.
into this thinking, or I after getting the edit letter for this book, I was like, I would actually be thrilled to work with this editor more, to like continue working with this editor. And like, you know,
Mm-hmm.
I have no way of knowing if that's how things are going to pan out. I have no way of knowing what'll happen. Like when we put, you know, send our option book, like whether or not they'll offer on it or whether or not
Right.
we'll take it. Like, I don't know what's going to happen. There are no
Mm-hmm.
guarantees, but I feel like it would be a privilege to get to continue working with this editor and building a
Mm-hmm.
career um, that starts in this place and like can stay there for a while because I do feel that trust. I do feel that that level of
Mm-hmm.
trust in it. It feels special and like you shouldn't just shouldn't let it go without really good reasons
Mm-hmm.
if it's up
Absolutely.
to you. So I really see the value in that
Absolutely.
now, and that's great. And I think this sounds to me like that's how you feel about your editor on that one series too.
Mm-hmm.
Is that
Oh yeah.
like they're so
It,
valuable to the process of that like
mm-hmm.
you
And
would never
if
want to
they
work
had more
with anyone
time,
else.
if they had more time, they would be on every one of my series
Uh huh.
because they are so good at what they do. He is just absolutely incredible. And not everybody is able to find that. And it's
Yeah.
okay if you don't, because there are still going to be editors that you will encounter that will know the tropes, will know the information, that the way and why certain things are selling and how to flesh that out in your series effectively, your stories effectively. They do exist. They are worth finding with everything you're doing. Just take the time to get to know them, take the time to look at their other work, take the time to do. I mean, you have to, if you're going to make money as an indie, you have to put the time into getting to know your team. But we can talk about some of those essentials in a different, in a different uh, podcast.
Well, and
But you're,
I would think that you know, like I would give advice when I was giving advice about like when you're querying, if you're trying to look for agents, like look for books that you like that are like your book, and
mm-hmm,
like see that you really enjoyed and see who that person's agent is.
mm-hmm,
I would imagine that to some extent that's something that you could do as an indie author. Like if you like somebody's work,
and
like an
should.
independent author's work,
Mm-hmm,
find out who they worked with as an editor,
mm-hmm.
and
And many indies, not all, but many indies are good enough to include their editor by name on their copyright
mm,
page. So you should be able to, in most cases, if it's an independently published work and you like the way the work was fleshed out and you like the way it's polished, you will usually be able to find their editor, or you can contact them directly, get on their newsletter, because that's a different kind of research we'll talk about later.
yeah.
We've talked about newsletters once. You'll hear me talk about it a million times, but get on their newsletter, hit reply, tell them what you liked about the book. Never just not give them any discussion, and then ask them about their editor. Make it a positive, create a connection. It will be valuable in the long term for your career. And yeah, it's worth it. You can do the research by finding other books that you like and getting in touch with the author. It's absolutely a thing to do. And it's not unprofessional. If anybody ever tells you that they don't know all the things, and they can think they know all the things, and that's okay with them, for them.
And for the record, my editor's name, I believe, is not on the book, except for where I thanked them in the acknowledgments. But for the record, my amazing editor is Tamara Grasty at Page Street YA. They're amazing, and you should buy all the books they work on. that's my pitch. So if you
Depending
guys have
on,
questions, you could put them in the comments for us about
please
editing.
do.
And maybe, Katrina, did you have something else you wanted to say?
I was going to say, and also watch the comments for links to see the final product. I was a teenage death god in the comments as well. You'll find the link to
And
be able to get that for you.
And the sequel should be coming out, barring any changes, April of 2027 is when it's currently slated for. We'll see if that sticks, but
Do you have
there it'll be.
Do you have a working title?
I
Or
do.
can you not share that
have
yet?
a title, but it hasn't been officially announced, so I'm not going to say it.
Okay. Understood.
I will
All right,
definitely let you
guys.
know when it's announced, though.
I am looking forward to it. All right, my friends. Thank you for hanging out with us today. This has been awesome. And I love talking about all this. And I love getting the chance to talk to you, MJ.
I love it too. And stay tuned to Two Cats Writing for more. And don't forget to hit subscribe if you enjoyed this episode.
Any questions you have about any part of the process, we are both happy to answer. So don't hesitate to let us know. See you guys in the next one.